I'm Deana.
And I'm Suzanne, and thank you so much for tuning in to the Rise and Shine It's Hypno Time podcast.
With Deana and Suzanne.
That's us.
The purpose of this podcast is to help you along your healing journey, to become the very best version of you that you can be, and to create the life of your dreams. We want to give you the tools you need to succeed through personal stories, guided meditations, hypnosis, NLP, and self-hypnosis techniques, as well as interviews with experts in a variety of healing modalities, from energy workers and spiritual healers to chiropractors, acupuncturists, holistic medicine, and much, much more.
Yes, and we also want this podcast to be a place where people can come together, share stories, and be reminded that you're not alone. In fact, the healing journey is a lifelong journey, and we are just so thankful that you're choosing us to be a part of your journey and that we have you to be a part of ours as well. And with that being said, let's start the show.
I'm ready when you are.
So welcome, Dr. Will Horton from Venice Beach, Florida. We're so glad to have you on this podcast.
Yes, thank you so much. It's an honor.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here.
It's a pleasure to see you, and we're looking forward to seeing more of you. The most important thing that I'd like to say right now is that we look up to you for so many different reasons. You've had so many experiences in your life. And we'd like for you to openly share whatever you want to share with us, because we're going to talk to you about anything you will.
Okay. All righty.
Maybe do you want to tell us just a little bit about yourself and how you became interested in psychology and hypnosis and NLP?
Yeah, it was a backwards process. No desire, didn't start out that way, no interest to do it. It wasn't like in my life plan, like in high school. Even though the first time I hypnotized somebody, I was in high school. There was a book, it's still in print. I always tell this story. It's called Hypnosis for Change. It's still in print. It used to be a yellow and orange cover book. And it was one of those books that just had told you a little bit about hypnosis, had a relaxation script, and then some like 3 or 4 scripts, right? And so I got the book, I read it, thought it was cool, and I hypnotized a couple people, right? It scared me to death because it worked.
Wow.
Post-hypnotics worked and everything.
Wow.
I didn't follow it up. I did make some self-hypnosis tapes. Back then they were, actually I started on a little reel-to-reel. Then we went to cassette tapes, and I'd listen to those for mainly football, sports, because that's my big thing. When I was in high school, I just kept my grades just good enough to play sports. I had no desire to do anything else. And then right after high school, I joined the service to become a pilot, helicopter pilot. And it was going pretty well. And then 2 things happened. A, they ended the war, Vietnam, and it was really, I went in, it was ending, but they shut the flight school down. And so I was kind of bouncing around the Army. And then my addiction, which actually started in high school. I always say that every time I drank, I didn't get in trouble, but every time I got in trouble, I was drinking. Whether it was in the high school, with the family, with relationships, or the military, whatever. So I did enough time to get I was in for a while. And then when I got out of the Army, mainly due to the addiction, I decided to become an actor, even though I tell this story, even though I'd never seen a play in my life. I didn't go in high school, thought it was weird. But I decided to become an actor, and I got accepted into a very good acting school, place called the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, which is like the Harvard of the acting world, right? It's up there with Juilliard. And it was weird. I was an affirmative action baby, as they would call it, because they needed Vietnam era vets. I fit the profile. So anyway, I went to acting school, was doing quite well, and it started in New York, ended up in California, and was doing good. And then the addiction took that away, right? And again, I didn't blame the alcohol or the addictive personality. I thought it was other factors. So I just kind of left, right? And it was fast forward a couple of years, the drinking took away a couple more not careers, but relationships, stuff like that. And I ended up in treatment, the Veterans Administration for Alcohol Treatment. And I liked it. That's the first time I ever exposed to therapy and Alcoholics Anonymous and all this other stuff. I liked it. And I got out and was doing pretty well. And then I had about 2 years clean and sober and went back to school and was doing some things, got a degree because I had the GI Bill. And then I had some challenges with recovery. And then I ended up stumbling across someone who did some hypnosis and NLP. I didn't know what it was. I kind of remembered it from the book I read, and it worked. And then everything kind of just clicked in. The 12-step program.
Was the hypnosis and NLP specifically for addiction?
I don't remember. I just remember everything made sense. What they were doing with the addiction and the 12-step program and everything else.
I gotcha.
And then it took off. And so I started doing volunteer work at like alcohol and drug treatment, detox centers. They used to have detox centers. And so I was doing that and ended up becoming an alcohol and drug counselor, and ended up, because I still had some GI Bill left, I ended up getting an advanced degree. And so that's just kind of how I stumbled into it. When I formally started studying, I started studying NLP first because it was easier to find than hypnosis, because this was in the early to mid 80s. And, there was no internet, there was no way to Google anything, and and the elite people in hypnosis would not train lay people.
Really?
Yes. One of the things I find hilarious to this day is all these people in the hypnosis world saying they're disciples of Milton Erickson, which lets me know right off the bat, they don't know what they're talking about. Because if Milton Erickson was alive today, he never, ever trained lay people.
Really?
Wow.
You had to have a doctorate, right? In psychology or medicine. That's it. He didn't even want to train social workers. In fact, fast forward a few years later, he found out like the whole myth about those guys, Bandler and Grinder, studying with Milton Erickson is not really true.
Really?
Neither one were medical professionals. He would not train. That line was in the sand. But anyway, so I was going to school, became a hypnotist, and that's just kind of been doing it ever since, and still doing my acting on the side. So that's kind of been, now in the last couple of years, it's flipping back. The acting's kind of going to the forefront and everything else is going to the back.
That's awesome.
So acting might be considered one of your passions. I know that you talk about
it. It is my passion.
There. So it's your main passion.
I would rank now NLP and hypnosis as a vocation. I wouldn't necessarily call it a passion anymore. I've been doing it for 36 years.
Wow. Yeah. So, and how long has it been since, Grinder actually and Bandler actually created this? I mean, how quick did you get into it?
I was what I would call the second generation NLP. The original group was in California at University of California, Berkeley. And that was Bandler, Grinder, John, Robert Diltz, David Gordon, Stephen Connie Ray Andreas, and a few others. And then they were training a few people, and then a few of us came in a little bit after that. And they were first starting to do trainings anyway.
I know you've been in it a long time. You probably helped develop a lot of the techniques that people use, right? Yeah,
and I got into it and I really liked it because it worked. And my first exposure to it was, why aren't we doing this, right?
Right.
In like addictions and stuff. And I was going to graduate school, but I really liked it. And then and when I first started, it was very short training. It wasn't that long, even NLP comprehensive. It was 8 to 12 days maybe.
Wow.
And there was no master and there was no trainer, none. You took just NLP, and if they liked you, they asked you back, you hung around, you helped out. They asked you back again, you got to kind of help out and learn and hang out with the trainers. That's how I got started. Wow. And then much like hypnosis, there was no formal training in hypnosis. And then, people get involved and I'm guilty of it. You create organizations and you create levels and all this other stuff. So it's kind of interesting. The biggest thing I find still amusing about NLP is the two founders of NLP, Robert Bandler Richard Bandler and John Grinder, and Gordon and a couple of the other people. are masters of communication. And yet they've not spoken other than in courts of law through attorneys since 1981.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah. So you've actually spent a lot more time putting in time and
Well, they're still doing it. And everybody kind of started to go their separate way. I had my break with them over addictions. I was doing a lot of training. I was getting into it. And some people still teach this. It's called the temperate drinking strategy, where they can take an alcoholic and get them to drink temperately, to drink normally. And the thought process, I understand, which is we do that with people with eating disorders all the time, because you have to eat in order to live. You can't just say, I'm abstinent. So I understand the thought process. Yet in practice, I've never seen it work. Never seen it work. I have fights to this day with people go, oh, if you go to a hypnotist, you don't need to go to like a 12-step program. I'm like, you're an idiot. I just point out, I can't, because if you come from an alcoholic family,
right,
and you grew up in an alcoholic world, okay, NLP, a good NLP practitioner or hypnotist can take away the desire to drink temporarily. But I've never in 40 years seen anybody quit drinking and hang around a bar.
Right.
And something
So what are you
that I
going to do with your
remember
fun?
you said that actually stood out to me whenever we were taking one of your lectures is people who are struggling with addictions need to change their playground and their playthings. And
yeah, if you hang around a barber shop, eventually you will get a haircut. End of story.
Right. There's no reason to be there. And I've had some experience, not personally, with myself, but I have had some experience in relationships and background experience of addiction. And I have myself, over 20 years or so of just experiencing being around it. I've not known anybody who was an alcoholic or a drug addict that could participate, temperately, like you said, kind of just on occasion. It was, you cannot do this. You need to stay away from it. You need to change your lifestyle. So I agree with you.
And when I still remember when it started to make sense, whatever that lady did, and I wish I could have found her again, there was a click in my head, which is there's no reason in my life to drink. There's no pain it will take away.
Right.
There's no situation it will make better if I'm celebrating, right? And this is a big one for me. There's no behavior I need a drink to do. Either quit doing the behavior or learn how to do it. Like some guys, well, I could never do that because I couldn't dance unless I had a few beers. Yes, you could. You're just
it might even be better than you think.
Yeah, you're just suffering from narcissistic personality at the level you think people are actually watching you. They're out there doing the middle-aged white guy shuffle. Right?
And the white man overbite.
Yeah. And so, I'm it's kind of interesting when I go to hypnosis conferences, and a lot of the people I know that dislike like the 12-step program, it's out of ignorance.
They don't understand the full principles of it, right?
Yeah,
because it is changing who you are. An example I used to use with a lot of people that I've worked with addiction, and that's just dozens compared to what you've done over a lifetime. But a lot of times, the first thing I relate about addiction is it's like a bad relationship. It takes and takes and takes and never gives you anything in return. It takes your time, it takes your concentration, it takes your focus, it takes your money, it takes your health. I mean, it just takes from you and never gives you anything in return.
And people that don't understand the 12-step program, it's on a couple levels. One is they say, well, you're saying you're powerless, right? And I say, the actual step in AA is we admitted we were powerless over alcohol. Our lives had become unmanageable. That's past tense.
Right.
Doesn't mean I'm powerless right now. I'm not. I could choose to drink or not to drink. But if I took a drink, I'm powerless, right? Because then the alcohol kicks in and things and I think people don't understand that. And it's a group where you learn how to have fun again, where you learn how to whatever you want to do, you can learn.
On a pure and simple level. Yeah.
Yeah. My friends run, a lot of them golf. Oh, I'd stab myself in the eye before I played a round of golf. But, they golf, they go, when I sobered up, there was guys we all bought motorcycles, we all bought motorhomes, we were camping, we were running around. And I didn't know how to do that, not drinking. Right?
And I think just the whole thing about community is so important too, going through anything.
And giving back.
Mm-hmm.
We as hypnotists help. And my big thing, I'll shut up about it with hypnotists and helpers and psychologists. I've had arguments with everybody, is it's pretty arrogant of us who get to help people change to not want someone else to go into a room and help other people change.
Right.
After you get it out of your system, if you're sober after a couple of years, you go to give back.
Right.
To be an inspiration to other people. And I think that's just, and I do believe hypnosis NLP really speeds up the process. That what could take years, this can speed it up.
To help you to change your perspective on a level that you need to walk away and choose something that you truly believe is better and healthier and happier for you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And what's interesting in my own life, probably for the first 25 years or so, when I would go to meetings, no one knew what I did for a living. Right. Really? I wasn't there to get clients. I was just, I was there, as they say, to share my experience, strength, and hope. But what was funny, because I usually show up in a suit, because back then I wore a suit to the office every day when my clinic. Since I would show up in a suit, people assumed I was either an insurance salesman or a car salesman. Either one, nobody wants to talk to about work. So, it's like no one ever asked me. It wasn't until I got on the cover of the local newspaper, because I work with an athlete, that then they're like, "You do that?" And I said, "Oh, well, yeah." Then I was kind of outed, I guess you could say.
Well, I kind of took you away from your passion, but it's such a great story to hear you experience what you did and overcome what you did. And how many years sober? 35, 38?
38.
38
awesome.
Years sober. That's a long time to just.
Probably longer than Miss Suzanne's been alive, I would imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. No, I'm just joking. Obviously. No, but I do want you to go into your passion, and that is acting, and talk to us about and even introduce how NLP or hypnosis or the studies that you've done has helped you in acting.
Okay. Well, and it was kind of interesting. I can't explain why I like acting. It's a lot of work, and I don't like to work. I avoid work, right? But it's a lot of work. But I do it, and for 30 years I did just like a lot of theater, which is a lot of work. Theater, and most, last 15 years is very more professional, so I always got paid. But I was just doing it for the love of it, and it's interesting, because no one in my family was into it. It's like, it was weird. That's the only way I can describe it. But I remember one time I was doing a play, and it's a musical called Sugar Babies. And I'm standing on the side about to go back on stage. I was playing a comic, and it's burlesque, right? So bear with me here. But anyway, I'm standing there with my arm. I'm in a tux. I'm standing there with my arms folded. I got a cigar, not lit, but it was a cigar. And I was going to walk on stage and do what my part. And there's these young showgirls out there dancing, right? Which I suffer for my art, ladies and gentlemen. It's so tough sometimes, right? That's a horrible thing to have to suffer there. These young girls out there dancing, and I'm standing there like this with a cigar, and I'm watching it. And they didn't have smoke, but they had smoke effects. So it looked like a burlesque house in the 1930s, right? And suddenly it dawned on me, as I'm standing there, it's like, I've been here before.
Huh.
It was like, that's why from the first time I stepped foot on stage, I was comfortable, not the opposite, right? It was like, I feel normal. I feel better on stage. So I think it was a past life, right? In fact, I know it is, because I went back and did some things, and it was like, I was like a burlesque comic at the turn of the century. And it was like, and you feel comfortable on stage.
I love it. That
Yeah.
explains the big personality, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
And also too, all the theater training, when I got into the NLP and the hypnosis and started doing trainings, it really helped me as a trainer, because if you've been in my trainer's class and Deanna has, it's like I say, it's a show. It is a show. You've got to entertain. You educate. I call it infotainment. Your information, but you should be entertaining. You know, the highest paid professional speaker and trainer in the world is Tony Robbins. He is very entertaining,
Right.
with the music and the things and the, it's like, so it like, I think that made me a better trainer. And to this day, when I look at hypnosis trainers and NLP trainers, and even in the world of psychology, which I'm still in because I'm a psychologist, the people that are really good, somewhere in the background, they were a performer.
Yeah.
They were a comic, a singer, an actor, a dancer, because then they understand the
nuances of
nuances of it's a
yeah.
show.
Uh-huh.
It's a show. And in fact, the National Guild of Hypnotists, the oldest hypnosis organization out there, was founded by magicians.
Really?
Doing stage shows. It was not a clinical organization. It was a stage show organization.
Wow.
Interesting.
Okay.
Dwight Damon, Orman McGill, who I met most of the founders. They were still alive when I got involved. Now it's just Dwight, but they were magicians, and so it was the magic of it. So
wow, that's cool.
I think that you're right. It's the magic of it is being able to relate. It's being able to draw in your audience. It's being able to entertain and connect. There's a lot about entertainment that has to do with teaching and connecting.
And I tell people they should take a magic class to understand illusion is reality to the person being witnessing the illusion.
Right.
It looks real, right? And to me, that sums up life. It's all an illusion, right? We don't know what's real. Now we get deep. Your reality is different than my reality. So what is reality?
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the perception.
Right. The perspective. You're exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not to backtrack a little bit, but aside from the addiction and the acting, we know that you've been focusing on trauma lately too, and helping people with that. Could you explain maybe why and a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Thank you. Great question. Because when I first got into this, like I said, I was a hardcore 12-step person, and I still kind of am in my personal life. But it's like I always wondered why, and I see it with hypnosis and therapy in general, why some people will do all the steps listed and get better. And another person, pretty close, same demographics, will do the same thing and not get better. And for addictions, it's like, why do some people not get it? Why do they just not get it? And it drives you crazy. And, you study the people that get it. And then you look at the people that don't get it. And it was driving me crazy. And so it started a process of looking at what's going on underneath it. And now that for a lot of people, the current thought about addictions and a lot of dysfunction is at its root, there's some kind of trauma, right? And when I say that, some people go, oh, everybody wants to hide in trauma. But you got to remember, it's how trauma affects your nervous system, not your consciousness, and how you encode that, whatever that event is, right? It doesn't just have to be, because usually when you think of trauma, and I'm a veteran, but you think of combat veterans or car wrecks, violent crime, domestic violence. Those are horrible traumas, but it could be anything that your nervous system encodes as a threat.
Right.
Right. And if it happens when you're young, before you're verbal, you have no words for this trauma. It's just a feeling, right?
Right.
And that will become a self-defense mechanism. And it sets up, what I really get into lately is people that self-sabotage.
Right.
Get right to the success point and then blow it up because somehow they don't feel worthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, if you really look at it, could be some things going on like contrary to the Disney kind of view of life or hallmark. Not every family, when the wife tells the husband that she's pregnant, is, oh, this is the best thing that'll ever happen. It's going to be sunshine and butterflies and rainbows. What if the first reaction is, we can't afford this? What the hell happened? Right? I mean, and I'm not saying the parents don't become great parents. I'm not saying any of that. It's that, it's that fear, right? Which gets encoded in the nervous system, even in the uterus, right? Or in the
vitro.
In vitro, couldn't think of the word. Yes, I'm a highly paid professional. And so it gets encoded. And the same with little things that can happen, that a kid could pick up the vibes. Oh my God, it's going to be expensive. Oh my God, they got an illness. We can't afford this. And again, not saying anything bad, but it gets encoded. So you get the idea that I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve to be here.
Right.
Of course, sometimes you actually hear that kind of stuff too.
Right.
So it becomes encoded. And once if it happens at a deep enough level, or if it happens when you're in some kind of shock, like a true trauma, at that moment, your verbal part of your brain shuts off. All you record is feelings. Talk therapy will not fix it. The VA is finally starting to look at what they did for 40 years about trauma, actually made trauma worse.
Right.
Having people come in and revivify the trauma, thinking it would de-escalate it. But for 50% of the people, it makes it worse, right? And so again, I started looking at trauma. Where does it come from? And about that time, I was really getting into it when COVID first started. And my God, seeing the people that were like acting out with COVID, right?
Right.
That some was just freaking out, and other people like, it's no big deal, And it's like, what is going on underneath the surface? That people are like, this is you will not take away my freedom. Maybe they've had some trauma in their family where they had no freedom.
Right.
And now, no, and so it's like, it's interesting, and it has to do with your nervous system, and you have to clear it from your nervous system, not just your conscious mind. And hypnotists get mad when I say it, and not just your subconscious mind,
Right.
Your actual nervous system.
Right. Can you kind of take us through an example of something like that? Would you be able to do that?
Yeah, it's like a good example would be like someone that says they really want a good relationship, right? And then they start getting a good relationship. And once it starts getting close, they blow it up, right? They start accusing the person they're getting, let's say it's a romantic
Sabotaging.
relationship, right? Yeah, it's like they start, you're cheating on me, you're doing this. And the other person's like, no, not everything. When the hell could I cheat on you? We're together almost 24/7. Yes, I know. Da, da, da. And so you end up driving away because somewhere it's fired off that kind of thought that maybe they felt abandoned. Not that they were, but they felt abandoned by one of their caregivers, mother, father, or somebody that was supposed to be a caregiver. And so it sets in motion that your nervous system goes, I'll blow this up before they can.
Right.
Right. And then, of course, then I become the victim and, what was me? And all that stuff. Right. And so, or I see it in the addiction world where people start sobering up and, start doing pretty good, getting their life back together, and then get drunk.
Right.
And I don't know why I did that. I don't know why I did that. Well, I know why you did it. You were starting to be successful. You don't deserve to be successful. Somewhere inside you don't deserve, you think you should be successful.
Now, don't you kind of describe that as like a highway or a bridge that has been developed during trauma or during a situation that was maybe going to protect you when you were younger or during that environment, and then it's misconnected. It's something that you need to kind of dissolve that and create a new highway or bridge?
Yeah, it's like if you get on any highway, I-10 up by you guys, I-75 by me, it's limited access highways, right? Once you get on, you're stuck there until you can get off the highway. You just can't pull off. And what happens, it's a good analogy for our brain, because our brains develop neural pathways that are like little highways. And once you get on one, it's tough to get off. It starts up because your brain's always trying to be efficient. So for 30 years, this worked. I get stressed, I can go have a couple beers, relax. It works. Now something shifted and I get under stress. I have a couple beers. It leads to a couple more beers. It leads to, do a little Coke. And the next thing you know, you're broke, you're fired, and, and then you start getting sober. And then but I deserve. So what used to work now doesn't.
Right.
But that highway's in your brain and you have to get a new highway. You have to blow up the old one and then create a new one. Right?
Interesting. Yeah. And I've been working with some of my students with this under, your your training as a trainer. And we worked on some of this stuff. I was kind of interested to see if you think it's a good idea that you actually take us through an example and help change our lives and make us better right here now.
And it could be anything. It could be absolutely anything. Whenever you get on a pathway that leads to a behavior you shouldn't do anymore, right? And again, I coming from addiction, it could be drinking, drugging, acting out, but even things like eating, right? Once you get on that pathway, it's almost like then it becomes self-generating, right? And just because it's worked in the past and it was installed in you, and there's a cool commercial about it, where what if you were raised by food pushers, right? Yeah. Oh, I made this for you,
right.
Because I love you. Right. If you don't eat it, it means you don't love me.
Right.
And and people, my professional opinion is people are weird, right? Like my mom, God rest her soul, she never cooked for me very much growing up. But when I was trying to make weight on the wrestling team, she would always start cooking biscuits and gravy, and then she would make Rice Krispie treats. And I'm sitting there trying to lose weight. You ever had anyone in your family be on a wrestling team? It's like they're running around in sweat clothes. And, you're skinny, but you're trying to get super skinny. And, oh, come on, you need to eat this. I made this just for you. Mom, I can't make weight. Don't you love me?
Ouch.
Yeah, it's so then you eat the food and then you don't make weight and then you say, well, what the shit, I'll just I'll quit the wrestling team or whatever, right? And so it could be anything like that. But once a behavior starts, and whatever that trigger is, it could be anything, it starts you down a path. So the easiest way to do it is take a deep breath and close your eyes and think about a behavior that you would like to change. That once that behavior starts, it's like, even though you really shouldn't, you're gonna do it, right? Eat the whole pizza, right? Or whatever it happens to be. And so as you think about it, you can find some of those little triggers in your body. Maybe it's a feeling. Maybe it's a sense. I call it a felt sense that I need to do this, even though intellectually I know I really shouldn't, right? And so as you do, you can pull back. Imagine pulling back, and seeing yourself sitting there, looking at it like you're about to get on a highway. And one of the limited access tollways or highways. I like tollways because we pay a big price for it, right? And once you get on, once you take that first bite, you take that first drink, whatever it is, you start that highway, you're stuck there for a while. It might be a few days, it might be a few hours, whatever it is, you're stuck on that highway. So that what we can do is we could just create a detour before you get on that highway. And what it is, it could be as simple as pulling back and putting up a sign that says, that's not who I am anymore, with an arrow going the other way, taking a different highway of doing something good for you, physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. And so it's not, and this is important, it's not that maybe at one moment in time, that behavior didn't work or fulfill some need or perceived need. It just no longer does. Because things change. when you were a little kid, you used to like what you liked. And then things change. And your beliefs can change quicker than we give credit for. Because when you were a little kid, chances are you believed in Santa Claus. You really, really believed in Santa Claus. And then something happened. You learned, you were told, you found out that there was no Santa Claus. You didn't get mad. You didn't get angry. You just let go of that belief. In fact, it became cute. Oh, well, that's not who I am anymore. And you know that other people could choose to believe in Santa Claus. And so what if you put the idea of whatever this behavior is, and you're changing in the same spot in your mind where you have Santa Claus. It's used to be true and now it's not. It used to be true and now it's not. And there's no anger, there's no fear, there's no resentment about having that belief. Same way we're not mad that our parents kind of kept us going with the Santa Claus because it served a purpose at the time. But now it doesn't. And so you can let it go and put the correct belief where you want it to be. And you put that sign up that says, that's not who I am anymore. And you choose to take the road less traveled. And they call it the road less traveled because very few people have the guts, the fortitude, and the drive to take the road less traveled, of taking responsibility, of letting go of the beliefs and attitudes and behaviors from the past that no longer fit you well, and add those in that you truly want. And so you could try in vain to get back on that highway. And it's like the gate won't go up. The toll keeper won't let you on the road. They might even say, you don't belong here anymore. Take the other road. It is closed. It is closed. It is closed. The same way I-10 gets shut down in a flood. This road is no longer open for you. And you know it'll be a process to learn a new way. Because if you've ever taken a different route to somewhere you like to go, sometimes you find new and interesting things to look at, see, and experience as you're on that journey. Good. Now take a deep breath. Exhale. Open your eyes.
It was great.
That was wonderful.
Yeah, my car just zoomed off. It wasn't going back anytime soon.
Yeah. Leave it to me to try and get through it and then have to back up right there in the middle of an exit.
Yeah. And there's no spikes to blow your tires out when you back up.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
That was wonderful. I actually usually like to try and set that up by telling anybody, don't try this while you're driving or anything like that. But that was wonderful. And that's how simple it is. That's how simple you can create a new shift, right?
Yeah. And then just reinforce it a few times. When, let's say it was eating something, when you see that food, you just think that's not who I am anymore.
That's great advice.
And you think that's probably some good advice for anybody out there who's actively struggling with addiction, who may be listening?
Addiction, yeah, food, any behavior that doesn't
serve you
anymore.
Do you have any maybe nuggets of wisdom for people who are listening right now that are struggling with any sort of addiction?
Well, first of all, the hardest step is the first step, to admit that there's something outside of our locus of control. All people in general, don't want to admit that something's outside their control. Right?
That's true.
Yeah.
And to sound a little like nationalistic, Americans are horrible about that. Everything's within our control. Pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. I mean, it's what we do, right? And somehow we view asking for help as a weakness, when in fact, it's the strongest thing you can really do. Right?
I agree with that.
And this ties into a study. You know, the guys that broke the code of life, Crick and Watson and Crick, I think are their names, right? The guys that broke the DNA, that really broke the code of life, right? They were talking and they said, you know what's interesting? We're not the smartest guys in the room. Far from it, right? There are a lot of smart people out there, much smarter than us. And they named a lady in France and a guy at Stanford. And so then somebody says, well, how did you guys do it when the big brains couldn't? He goes, well, the only difference is there's two of us and we reached out for help all the time. When we ran into a problem, we asked for help. We didn't try to figure it out ourselves, because we know when you bring a collective together, it's expanded. And here in America, we could also point to the Manhattan Project, right? You had Einstein, Tesla, all these guys that brilliant beyond belief, right? It's involved, and it only worked because they worked together, you know. And of course, Einstein, the grandfather of all that stuff, was the first one to say he needed help, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Good model for what we should do, huh?
Yeah. So yeah, and then wherever that help comes from, whether it's a one-on-one, whether it's just make a call to somebody that's maybe overcome that problem and see, what did you do to overcome this problem? Whether it was, like you say, an addiction or food or whatever it was, what did you do? What, and this and that, and then kind of do what they did, because underneath it all, if you're stuck, whatever you're doing ain't working, son or ma'am, do something different,
Yeah. Be humble enough to ask and recognize that, with thousands of years before us and thousands of years after us, we don't know it all. And it's good to ask for help. That actually shows intelligence.
Well, yeah. And then what we're finding out about intergenerational learnings and trauma that gets passed on, that actually is harder to break.
Genetically, you're talking about too?
Yeah, and it gets passed on because it has to do with keeping you alive. And again, maybe this behavior served you in the past. When you get upset, when there's a lot of stress, you want like high carb foods, right? Now they're figuring out, well, guess what? That works for a lot of cultures, German, the Icelandic countries, because you needed to carve up and get a little fat, because once everything went dark in the winter, there was no food.
Right.
So, but now there's food everywhere all the time, God willing. But so you're not only fighting your demons, you're fighting intergenerational demons.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And this is a little off topic, but something I noticed on your website actually is that you have a spot up there for social media addiction. Is that something that you see a lot?
If you are going to create the ultimate addictive tool, this is it.
To control society.
He's holding up his iPhone, people.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, because it's instantaneous feedback.
Right.
Instant gratification.
And also it shows your brain is still it takes a long time for your brain to develop, right? And that's not the right word. For evolution to happen. So if you post something and all these people slam you, you feel bad. And then but if you think about it, you're like, I don't know half of these people.
I don't care.
Who do I care? Right? And yet oh my God, or you didn't get the likes or whatever it happens to be. So it's like, it feeds that, right? Instantaneous feedback. It's a way to and it's an escape mechanism. All of us, even if we won't admit it, have gone down the Facebook rabbit hole. You're going to make one post, but then you see something a friend posts. The next thing you know, you're like, what the hell happened to the last 30 minutes? You're reading all this stuff and you're bouncing around, right? And they will admit they've created algorithms that fire off your dopamine receptors, which keeps you into it, right?
And it's a false, and the thing about it is it's false attention, it's false love, it's false gratification. And it also is a way to indoctrinate or influence, don't you think, by how you can pull people into and then give them information that makes them feel differently about things that they used to feel.
Oh yeah. And yes. And two things happen on social media. A is it becomes an echo chamber for things you already believe. They figure out you like this stuff. We could use politics. I don't care if it's right or left. Okay, they like this stuff, and they'll bomb your site with this stuff. Then you feel like, oh yeah, everybody thinks this way. Everybody thinks this way. No, they don't. But it feeds that. The other thing, it used to take, I think, whatever it was, 100 years for the information base to double, right? And now it's like less than 2.
Oh yeah, I know. It's
the
changed.
Information base will double, and it's doubling and doubling. And you can't physically keep up with it.
I was just going to say, how do you keep up?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we were, in the marketing side, people talk about like Facebook marketing or Google marketing or things. What works today will be obsolete in 30 days. Right. So everything's changing so fast. Our brains can't catch up.
So how do you think we manage that? Do we set our own standards? Do we step back ourselves and set our own standard and say, hey, this isn't healthy and I can see how it can be destructive. How can I use it to be beneficial and healthy, but also back away from it and set some sort of,
Yeah. Well, and to link back to the question of like social media as an addiction, the different part, that addiction is much more like food to me than alcohol or drugs. I can live the rest of my life and not drink or get high, right? But I have to eat no matter what. Even if I'm on a diet, I'm getting ripped for something, I got to eat. So that's this. And in this day and age, you may have to be on social media. And people go, no, you don't. And I'm like, if you're going to run a business, you got to have a website. You got to have something on Facebook. You got to do something on Google. End of story, or you're not, right? Because how I started thinking about social media as an addiction, there was a guy who was a friend of mine, and he got off social media because he said it was too addictive. I knew him from recovery, and he said he was lost in social media. So he got off all social media. Well, he was starting a business. I said, well, good, except now you better do something about this. He goes, why? I'm going to build it all by word of mouth. I go, you'd be broke in 3 to 6 months. It's just, it's like, you got to have a website, you got to have this, you got to have that. And, so how do you learn that ability to be to moderate it,
right,
to use it for what it is, go on and post and then get off, not get involved in the discussions. That's the easiest trigger. That's what can get us all. Like someone will post something that'll just, you think you have to comment.
Mm-hmm.
If you pull back and go, I don't even know these people. Really? I mean, I know maybe from the hypnosis world or the acting world. It's like, it's none of my business. Right. And unless you're like at that level, like a Tony Robbins, who he himself does not do social media. He has 3 full-time social media staff the last time I checked, right? Or somebody that knows them. So it's different. He doesn't have to. But the rest of us, you may have to. So you have to kind of treat it like
a business,
like a business or like food. It's like, I know if I start eating sweets, I'm screwed. I'm going to eat a lot of sweets. Right. So I won't eat them. I'll do something else. So when I look at like Facebook, I'm going to go on, make my post, and then get off. Right.
Right. And not let it affect you, not let it connect with you, even chemically, because it's all those likes that is just like the little addiction connection that, I feel good because somebody liked me. I feel good because somebody liked me. And you can get addicted to wanting more likes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see, I guess, how the social media aspect of everything will play a role in that generational cycle that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. Oh, it'll be
100 years down the road.
No,
you're going to have chips in your brain, and
30 years down the road, and you'll see a lot.
If that, like Elon Musk said, they're working on the chips in your brain, right?
Yeah,
I know it's kind of scary. And I guess, like you said, just self-management, being able to draw back, utilize it for what it's good for, and recognize it for what it's not. stay away from it, and teach your children to stay away from it, have them find their own balance. I guess it's a lot to do with balance, isn't it?
Yeah. And it'll be like how I envisioned them selling it to us, much like they did the COVID stuff, which is fear, apprehension, and you'll be left behind because, hey, guess what? We put this chip in your head, right? And no, I'll never do that. But then you can download the internet. So if you have a question, you can just answer the question.
Right.
That's pretty appealing.
They slowly feed it into something that you accept because of all the positives that they show you.
Yeah.
You're not seeing the destructive part of that. Yeah.
It's like, wouldn't it be nice to be able to have the answers? Like just, you could go, wait a second, and you look up Google. Okay, here's the answer, right?
Right.
So it'll be, don't get me started. I picture us
if
you're a Star Trek fan, I picture us as the Borg within 100 years.
Oh, wow.
We'll all be part of the collective consciousness,
Wow, that's funny. Well, you know what? They come up with ideas because it's in our brain. It's a possibility, or we wouldn't come up with those ideas. So there's certainly a possibility of everything that you've ever seen, everything, every movie you've ever made, every, futuristic thing, just like cell phones. I mean, just like, being able to use lasers. I mean, they've already developed all that. And 20 years ago, you'd say, nah, that's never going to happen.
And remember, resistance is futile.
Wow. That's so funny.
Well, you know what I was thinking? Maybe we could see if he'd be willing to share one of his stories about how he uses NLP like outside of the office. Because I know you've had more classes and stuff with him and heard some of his stories, and I would just like to hear one for myself.
Yeah. I talk about your stories and how you teach and everything, and that a lot of them go into movies or examples and experiences. And she's feeling kind of jealous because she never gets to hear them.
Yeah, I hear some funny secondhand stories, but I want to hear them for the man himself.
How I got on an airplane that was sold out.
Perfect.
Right? I was flying to Washington, D.C. to do something, right? And as always happens here in Florida, you have to change flights. It was either Atlanta or Charlotte. There's no direct flights from where I live, right? In fact, if you die, your soul has to go to Atlanta or Charlotte before they ship you on to the afterlife.
Yeah.
Anyway, so my plane was delayed a little bit. So I missed my connection. And there was weather and all that crap that happens when you're flying. And so I missed my connection. So I landed and I'm like, and it was Atlanta, I remember now. And I'm like, they said, well, we put you on standby for the next flight, right? Which was the last flight of the day, right? And as usual, I booked it close and I was supposed to teach the next day. So if I missed it or something, I wouldn't be able to teach. Okay, fine. So I get to the gate, and if you've ever been involved when there's flight issues, the airport's a zoo, especially Atlanta. Everybody's there, it's packed and everything else, right? And so the guy's behind the counter, and I look up and I see there's my name in the standby list, and I was like number 10, right? And it was a small jet going from Atlanta to DC. And I'm looking around, I'm like, this does not look good, ladies and gentlemen, right? Because that means 10 other people can't be there. It might happen, right? So I'm waiting, and I'm going to go up and talk to the guy. And I'm thinking, okay, and I was getting ready to teach something with, I think it was persuasion for sales. I'm like, okay, let's practice while you're here. You might as well practice. And so I'm watching the guy. He's behind the counter. He's like this. He's up, you can describe it. He's slumped over. He's being yelled at by everybody because everybody's like this. Especially going to Washington. I'm so important. I got to get there. This is going to happen. I need this, everybody. And they're yelling at him, like it's his fault. He's a gate guy, for whichever airline it was, right? And I'm like, so everybody's yelling at him, and he's like, and he's trying, he's being polite because that's what they have to do. Right. So I wait till there's nobody up there yelling at him. I give it a minute, and I walk up. And he's like kind of slumped over, kind of typing, doing whatever he's doing. So I take the same posture as him on the counter, and I go, and he just looks up. He goes, yeah, how can I help you? I go, Don't you hate it when people yell at you about crap beyond your, I think I said shit beyond your control. I mean, it's like, I mean, unlike you have nothing to do with the weather, but everybody's yelling at you like you caused that snowstorm that backed everybody up. And, that's why I missed my previous flight coming out of Florida and I go, and I just made small talk with him for a minute. I go, I hate that. And he goes, yeah. And then I shifted my posture a little bit, right? Threw my shoulders back and my head up. And he goes, and he shifted a little, which if you're in NLP means he's following me. And I go, and I know that I go, is this the last flight you got to do tonight? I figured it was because it was like a 10 o'clock flight. He goes, yeah, in fact, I was supposed to be off a couple hours ago. But with this thing, as soon as I button it up, I think the term he used, I'm done for the night. I said, well, great. What are you going to do tonight? And he goes, well, I hope to catch the second part of one of the games on TV, basketball game, have a couple beers and relax. I leaned in, I go, well, you just think about how good you'll feel cracking open a cold one, putting your feet up, putting all this, and I made the effort around the airport, putting all this bullshit behind you, right? It's not going to affect you. You can relax and watch your game. And he went, yeah, that'll be nice. And I said, have one for me, and he laughed. And then he goes, he looks at me and goes, is there anything I can do for you? I said, well, yeah, my name is, and I told him my name. I said, I know there's probably nothing you can do, but I know that you, like me, hate being yelled at because for things you beyond your control. And tomorrow morning, I'm supposed to be teaching. And, if they have to delay, they have to delay. And he goes, And he looks, he goes, yeah, you're like, I think I was like number 10. He goes, ugh, that's not good. I said, I know. Things happen and, it'll be fine. But you keep thinking about your basketball games, because you're doing a good job and I thank you so much. And I sat back down, right? And he's doing his thing. He's in a better state, right? Mm-hmm. And so then, of course, other people come up yelling at him. And then a couple minutes later, there's nobody at the counter. So I get up and I walk by. I said, you just keep thinking about that game. I said, oh, by the way, I'm going to run down Starbucks, get a cup of coffee. Would you like anything? And he goes, oh, that's nice of you. But no, I know they can't take it, right? You're supposed to say no. But, it's like, hey, can I get you a cup of coffee? And he goes, no, thank you. But no, I can't. And I said, okay, just keep thinking about that basketball game. And, I just really hope I can get on that flight. And then I left, I sat back down, right? And, and then they start boarding the flight. Plane came in, they got everybody off, and they start boarding the flight, all the pre-thing. And then they start calling the standby list, right? And there's like 1, 2, 3, and people are looking and they're excited. And I think it was about 6. He calls my name.
Nice.
And I'm number 10, right? And that was the last one. I was the last guy getting on that plane, right? So I go down, I said, thanks, man. You just think about your basketball game. He goes, yeah, you have a good night, enjoy whatever you got to do tomorrow. I said, well, you have a good night. And I get on the plane and I hear somebody come up and go, wait, I was supposed to be next. Right. And again, he's the gate guy. Always be nice to the people that like the assistants and that. He goes, hey, double platinum partner or whatever. I wasn't, but it's like the door is closed. And he goes, the door is closed. I could kind of hear him say that, and so it got me on a plane. Right? So I tell that story. Of course, somebody will go, yeah, but what about the people you bumped? I go, well, maybe they should take my NLP course.
Right.
It's an inside advantage. So that's one. And I call it an energy exchange because he was in a better mood, than when we started. And I got on a plane.
Yeah, there was actually service being done there from you to him because you made his day better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and we always do things for people we like. That's the number one
That's
rule
true.
of all business.
That's absolutely true.
You'll go out of your way for somebody you like.
That old saying, you can get more flies with honey than with vinegar is just, I don't want flies, but
yeah,
it's a true statement. You just, when you're nice and you relate to people and you connect to them, and then you put into procedure the techniques of NLP and the things that you teach, you can be a powerful influence without it even, throwing anybody off. It's not a negative thing. It doesn't have to be manipulation as much as it's just being nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that story. Thank you for sharing that.
Hopefully we'll be able to get you back on here and we can have a part 2. Yeah.
And if I ever get stuck in an airport, I know exactly what to do.
I think you got a lot of those. I think you've gotten out of tickets and stood around. I remember the story that you told about stepping into that. It was either a police or FBI situation where you kind of carried yourself the same way, like you had your head.
Oh yeah, that was Toronto, and I've been around cops. I wasn't around cops for, well, in the military, but I was in Toronto, and since I'd been to the FBI Academy, I'm like, okay, how everybody the cop stance, right, and everything. I'm like, okay, so I'm in Toronto drinking a cup of coffee, and these 2 cops are standing. They're in uniform, with their hand on their gun, drinking their Tim Hortons coffee. Right, that's big in Toronto. So they're sitting there and they're just eyeing the crowd, and it was like the hippie Boys Town area, a little bit like hip urban theater district up there. I was teaching up there, and so I'm like, I had my Starbucks, and I walk over, standing next to the guys, and I took the same stance, hand on my hip, shoulder back, looking down, drinking coffee, making eye contact with everybody. Looking around, crowd control is what it'd be called, right? And the one officer, the older guy looks at me, looks at the other guy, the other officer looks back at me and goes like this. I went, and they took a sip, I took a sip, and then finally the younger guy goes, "Psst, are you on the badge?" Because I was dressed I had jeans and a leather jacket, a bomber jacket, kind of like you'd see cops dressed off duty, and like, are you on the badge, which is cop speak for you? Are you undercover? Are you here to do something? Hopefully you're not here to check up on us. I mean, and I go, oh, no, I'm not a police officer. I just was a consultant for the FBI. And then we stood there and talked for like 20 minutes. What are you doing in Toronto? Teaching a class on what? Persuasion. We stood there and talked, had some coffee, so it was their brain, anyway, the reason I did that, their brain didn't know what to do with me. I kind of have the cop look, to be honest with you, right. Short hair and shape, and this was 20 years ago. And I knew the stance, the one foot in front of the other, hand on hip, drinking the coffee,
The power of influence.
Yeah, and it's subconscious influence.
It is. That's what's so neat about it. It's fun.
That's great. Well, you're full of so many good stories. I love it. And I also was wanting to ask if you're going to be appearing in any upcoming movies that we should look out for.
There you go.
The one I did last year, it's called Cruel Summer. It's a 80s slasher flick.
Love it.
It's supposed to be streaming sometime this spring, early summer, right?
Oh, so cool.
Right. And then because I filmed Cruel Summer 2 in May. So that's kind of cool. I got to do it in flashbacks because they killed me in the first one.
Oh, no.
I was the serial killer brother that got killed in the first one.
Oh,
right?
Wow. I love it.
Serial killer, and then that. And then this month, the end of the month, I fly to Los Angeles to film. It's called Mistletoe Massacre, a Christmas slasher film. It's kind of funny because I'm not into those movies. I watched a few of them not growing up. I was an adult by then, but it wasn't my genre. But it's like, this is like the 4th or 5th slasher horror movie. It's like anything. It's like becoming a hypnotist. Once you get in the group, they're like, oh, you want to do this? You want to do that? So
I could imagine that would be like so much fun to record, though. Like that type of movie, I don't know.
Well, yeah, and it was. I actually got to spend an hour in the makeup chair.
Nice.
And they were putting the
hair and makeup.
I got stabbed in the head with a knife.
I think I saw the picture of that.
Prosthetics on it. Yeah. So
that's awesome. And I guess if
people were wanting to maybe work with you or take your class, how would people get in touch with you?
The easiest way is the website, NLP. That's Nathan Frank, Nathan Louis Paul, NFNLP.com. That's the main site for all the training and all that. I also have the website, Dr. Will Horton, DrWillHorton.com. That's a little bit of the training and the personal stuff, the acting and that.
Right.
So. That's awesome. And we do have one last little segment that we like to do with our guests, where we ask you a series of questions, fast, fun facts, so the listeners can get to know you in a little bit different way. So are you an early bird or a night owl?
Early bird.
Early bird? All right. And what's one of your all-time favorite movies?
My God, there's so many. Probably The Empire Strikes Back.
Nice. Good one.
There you go.
What is the one song that can get you hyped up no matter where and when you listen to it?
Village People song.
Are you serious?
I like disco.
Perfect. And what is lighting you up the most and exciting you the most in life right now?
Transitioning into acting more. Acting.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
And if our listeners could walk away with one nugget of wisdom from today's conversation, what would you want that to be?
The thing that's holding you back isn't your fears, it's who you think you are. And if you change who you think you are, the fears will disappear. Because when fear meets preparation, the fear goes away.
That's great.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much again for coming on the show. It's been so fun and such an honor, and hopefully we can do this again sometime. That would be great. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Rise and Shine It's Hypno Time podcast. If you found some value in this episode and enjoyed it, please consider liking, subscribing, and giving us a 5-star review. Most people may not know that interacting with our content and our channel helps us to continue the work we're doing and reach more people. And we just want to thank you again from the bottom of our hearts for being such a loyal listener. And don't forget to tune in next week and every Tuesday for the latest episode of the Rise and Shine It's Hypno Time podcast with Deana and Suzanne. See you next week.